Greetings, brothers. Welcome to a video breaking down the detachment, a deep dive into Liberator Assault Group. This is the detachment that replaced Sons of Sanguinius. So in this video, rather than focus on the whole Codex, we're going to talk specifically Liberator Assault Group. We're going to cover gotchas, we're going to cover best units, we're going to cover combos. So basically by the end of this video, you will know everything there is to know about the Liberator Assault Group, and you can start building your first army list for this detachment in 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000. It wouldn't be right to start this new detachment without a little bit of lore. When the Blood Angels are roused to war, their enemies are destroyed with ruthless aggression. Prioritizing speed and mobility, they advance upon their foes in disciplined order, intercessors pouring accurate fire into enemy formations, while armoured vehicles and airborne transports deploy waves of jump-pack-equipped warriors to strike the foe from above. Veterans clad in relic armour engage champions and leaders, their artificer-crafted blades humming with crackling energy as they weave through steel, flesh and bone, exploiting the shock and awe of their initial assault. Liberator Assault Groups proceed towards their objectives with relentless determination, utilising a combination of discipline and savagery to destroy any enemy foolish enough to stand before them. I almost got through that. Only took about 6 takes. Right, so what is Liberator Assault Group? Where it's a faction of Adeptus Astartes, and at the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army. Till the start of your next command phase, that enemy unit is your Oath of Moment target. Each time a model with this ability makes an attack that targets your Oath of Moment target, you can reroll hits. So basically, you'll pick one enemy unit, your whole army will reroll hits against it this turn. It's very useful for just that one unit that you know you're going to be making multiple charges against, or you're going to get a weaker unit sometimes to have to deal with like a bad position on the battlefield. This can turn the tide in your favour. So at the moment is it's a decent rule. And I think I've made a whole video on how you select the best Oath of Moment targets. You can find that on the channel. I think that will be very similar in the new Codex as it was before. But what is Liberator Assault Group? Well, this is a replacement for the Sons of Sanguinius detachment. So we keep the Red Thirst rule, which basically means each time an Adeptus Astartes from your army is selected to fight, if that unit made a charge move this turn, until the end of the phase, add 1 to the attacks characteristics and 2 to the strength characteristics of melee weapons equipped by that model in the unit. Now, having used Red Thirst a lot, basically, it's the difference between Blood Angel slaughtering your enemy and not slaughtering your enemy. Usually your units feel a little bit neutered when they do not have the Red Thirst. And you will not have the Red Thirst if you are ever charged. You only get it when you make the charge. But it is worth noting that if you do use a heroic intervention and make a charge from a heroic intervention, while you wouldn't be fighting first, you would still get your +1 attacks, +2 strength. So it can be usable from a heroic intervention situation. Now, this is the rule that makes this detachment so good. Basically, a lot of our units, when they get this bonus from the charge, it usually basically just means, well, an extra attack on a model with like 3 attacks is another 33% damage output, and 2 extra strength usually moves you to like an upper break point or something. You know, like if you were a blade guard and you had a strength 5 sword and you were fighting Eldar, you know, you would wound on 3s, but if the sword is now strength 7 from the +2, you wound on 2s. So it usually moves your wound roll up. Doesn't always, but most of the time it will, and when it does, it's quite meaningful with the additional attack. So let's look at the enhancements for the Liberator Assault Group, and the Sons of Sanguinius enhancements were kind of lackluster. So these are most interesting, I would say. The first one, Speed of the Primarch, used to be a Warlord trait, now it's an enhancement, and I think it is super strong, and I've got a couple of ways we can use this as we get deeper into the video on how to make like really nasty combos. So once per battle, at the start of the fight phase, the bearer can use this enhancement. If it does, until the end of the phase, models in this bearer unit have fight first. So we'll be able to place fight first on any unit in our army that is led by a character. As it stands, this enhancement is 30 points. It's quite expensive, but it's also very good. The second enhancement, Rage Fueled Warrior. Once per battle, at the start of the fight phase, the bearer can use this enhancement. If it does, until the end of this phase, the bearer's melee weapons have sustained hit 3. So, 10 points at the moment. Now, all these points costs may change when the Codex actually comes out and the MFM is released, but these will be the points in the book if you're looking to build a starter list and try out the new book. So sustain 3 on any character that you want. And the obvious choice here is going to be the captain that can get 9 attacks on the charge. So this would give him 9 attacks with dev wounds. In fact, he can actually get 10 attacks if he takes the Mastercrafted Chainsword, I believe, and then sustain 3 on those 10 attacks. So this is a very powerful enhancement. Yes, it is once a game, but usually that captain charges in, kills some stuff, and then dies anyway. So possibly once per game is totally fine. This is 10 points. Do you know what? I don't often read the lore, but let's jump back. So Speed of the Primarch's lore is, such is this warrior's rage-fueled speed, it is as the Primarch himself fights alongside his sons. That's a cool lore paragraph. And rage-fueled warriors, fury burns in this warrior's soul. A single moment of savage brutality stands between them and the maddening embrace of the Black Rage. Okay, the lore guys have done an ace job here. I think it's sad that we don't always read the lore on this channel. I'm sorry about that. Red Thirst. Though they strive to retain it, the murderous ferocity of the Blood Angel simmers beneath the surface of their thoughts. In battle, this rage drives them towards their foe and lends great strength to their blows. These are all very cool. Okay, I'm liking this detachment already. Let's go on to Icon of the Angel. This existed in Sons of Sanguinius, but I think there has been a change. The Icon of the Angel reminds the Blood Angels of their heretics who fled after laying low Sanguinius, exhorting them to let no enemy escape their grasp again. So pick a step as a starter's model. Each time an enemy, excluding monsters and vehicles within engagement range, is selected to fall back, they must take a desperate escape test if their unit was battle shocked. When doing so, the enemy is also battle shocked. It means subtract another 1 from each of those desperate escape tests. This is kind of quirky, I think, because most of the time the things that you will kill easily in melee will be infantry or swarms. And these are the sort of units that actually aren't going to get to have to take the test because it excludes monsters and vehicles. So 10 points for the Icon of the Angel. I think this is the lowest common denominator. I don't really like this enhancement. And finally, we've got Gift of Foresight. This heroic warrior bears a glimmer of Sanguinius' prophetic gifts. Flashes of foresight allow him to weave around his enemy's blows with supernatural skill. So this used to be the warlord trait that Brother Corbulo that let you, I think, he used to give him a feel no pain on a 5-up or something crazy. But once per battle round, so battle round is your turn and your opponent's turn. So once per battle round, after making a hit, wound, or saving throw, you can treat this result roll as a 6 instead. Now it's important to note that this is, you can treat the result as an unmodified 6 instead. So you roll the dice first. So if you had this on a character, you would roll to see if you make the save. Oh no, I failed the save. Well, let's change that to the 6. So I guess like if your opponent goes first, you have to make some saves. You can do it. Otherwise, if you go first, maybe, and you've got a Thunderhammer, maybe you roll some dice, you change one of them to a 6, you get some dev wounds. So it's not the worst enhancement. It's 15 points. I guess because it lasts the whole game, I guess comparatively against Rage-Fueled Warrior, it's pretty decent. But I think the huge winner here is Speed of the Primarch, and I've got a video later in this video that's going to show you some of the cool stuff you can do with Speed of the Primarch. Let's jump into stratagems. So Angelic Grace. Sanguinius' sons are blessed with the spiritual fortitude of their Primarch. So this basically picks a unit on the table. You're going to be able to give that unit a 5-up ability for Feel No Pain against mortals. And bear in mind, this is going to work against dev wounds as well. So if you're fighting something that can do a lot of dev wounds, and or something that can do a lot of mortals, then this is a great strat for 1 CP. And also it's worth noting, it says when any phase just after an Adeptus to start a unit from your army has a mortal wound allocated to it. So most people are going to roll all their dice at once, right? So they'll roll 10 attacks or 10 wound rolls, and you're not going to roll them individually one at a time. They're probably going to roll all 10 at the same time. So they roll a 10, they get a heap of 6s. You think that's a lot of dev wounds. Now I will activate my stratagem. It's not like Armor of Contempt where you need to pick it to be active as soon as they declare you as a target. You will pick this when you need to make those Feel No Pains against dev wounds, and because of that, it's quite strong stratagem. You know, if the enemy only do 1 dev wound against you, cool. If they do 10, maybe I'll play Angelic Grace. Let's look at Armor of Contempt again. We've seen it in every other detachment. It's going to let us choose a unit in our shooting phase or the fight phase. We'll be able to get worsen AP of incoming attacks by 1. This was typically really good with Sangre Guard, and it might still be because they are still on a 2-up save. So if you're only getting hit with AP 2 weaponry, Sangre Guard will benefit a lot from this, because this will leave them on a 3-up save. And if they're on a 3-up save, then that's generally a very strong save to have against an AP 2 weapon as a 3-up. And also, if they're in cover, this could be even more valuable, right? So, the belligerence of the Adeptus Astartes combined with their enhanced physiology makes them unyielding foes to face. So basically, you become pretty tanky if you use Armor of Contempt. It's a great stratagem, we use it all the time. I think if you're not familiar on how to use it, you just have to use it a bunch of times and you'll very quickly see it. You get more value from Armor of Contempt on units that start with a better save. Because, like, if you are changing a saving throw from like a 5 to 6, or 6 to 5 rather, if you're still pretty unlikely to save. Whereas if you're changing a saving throw from a 4 to 3, it just feels like there's much more chance. Like sometimes when you roll 6 dice, you can roll all 3 ups. It's not often, sometimes when you roll 6 dice, you're going to roll all 5 ups, right? So it feels like Armor of Contempt, you get more benefit on units with better saves. It's a great unit. It's a great stratagem to use on Sangre Guard, trust me. Savage Echoes is the next stratagem. The Sons of Sanguinius may embrace the Red Thirst for a moment if the need arises. And this is a great, great stratagem and something that we've needed for a while. So we use this in the opponent's charge phase. Once you target one unit from your army that was just charged by an enemy unit. So the enemy charge you, what are you going to do? You can then take sort of like the pseudo version of Red Thirst. So we can select the strength or attacks of melee weapons equipped with this model in your unit, and we can add 1 to the select characteristic. So either +1 strength or +1 attack. We can, however, choose to give into the Red Thirst, and if you do, we will become battle shocked. But the effects of the stratagem still apply, and until the end of the turn we will take 1 strength and 1 attack to models of melee weapons equipped by this model in unit. So basically, like, if you get charged by a bunch of enemies anywhere on the board, if +1 strength is going to modify your wound roll, could be worth taking that. If +1 attack is going to help you kill enemy units, could be worth taking that. This will work really well on one of those fight first units as well. And if you want to take both, you can actually take both, but you take the battle shock. Now, it's your opponent's charge phase, right? So your opponent is going to charge you, they're going to fight you, maybe they kill a few units, that's fine. You take your +1 strength and attack and go battle shocked. It is going to be your turn right after that, right? So then your unit, if it's above half strength, it's going to auto pass any battle shock, and you're going to regain any objective that you potentially controlled. If the opponent has a secondary where they're trying to hold that objective by killing a few of your guys, then you maybe do not want to be battle shocked for that. But in terms of like controlling the objective that these guys are on at the start of the next turn, that shouldn't be so much of a problem. And I guess anytime you're not fighting on an objective, then for the most part, you can just take the battle shock. You're unlikely to spend 2 stratagems on a defensive unit, I feel like. You would either choose Armor of Contempt or Savage Echoes. You probably don't do both, right? So in this case, you can get like a semi buff to the Red Thirst when you are charged. Now, very often in games, I feel like Blood Angels lack a bit of hitting power when you are charged. If you've got CP for interrupts, and you're able to interrupt and you're able to use this potentially changes a lot. This makes your unit in a defensive situation just a lot stronger. And I really like that they've finally given us a stratagem like this. So if we're going to be in combat, we can just get those extra hits. And sometimes this could just be important for, like, if you use this to guarantee that you are killing an enemy unit, that enemy unit has then not tied you up in combat, preventing you like charging or falling back or anything like that. You know, like maybe you only have a few models left in a unit, the enemy only have a few models left in a unit, but they don't want your jump units jumping to another objective. Well, you could use this to guarantee that you kill them in their phase, or their turn rather, and then you still get to jump onto the other objective like you wanted to. So I really like Savage Echoes. I think it's a nice option to have. And it's nice that we can go Battle Shock to be even stronger. So Red Rampage got a little bit of a change. from the Sons of Sanguinius. In times of great desperation, fury and ferocity can be a warrior's strongest ally. So, same as it was before, you choose one unit that has not been selected to fight. You now give them lance or lethal hits. I feel for the most part, lance will probably always be better. Lethal hits might not be too bad if you've got rerolls to hit. Because if you've got rerolls to hit, then potentially any ones or twos that you would potentially be rerolling can potentially give you sixes and give you some more lethal hits. But I think for the most part, you want to take that lance. +1 to wound on Blood Angels is going to be very good. You're still going to have like strength 9 and 10 Eviscerators and Power Fist from Death Company, so they benefit a lot from +1 to wound. You're going to have those strength 6 chainswords that will benefit from +1 to wound. You'll have the Sanguinary Guard that are now going to be strength 8 on the charge. They'll benefit a lot from +1 to wound. So I think this is actually very strong. Once again, you can become battle shocked to take both. I guess it depends on if you're desperate for needing that. Here's the one thing that is super important to note as well, though. Sanguinary Guard are carrying that banner on one model, right? So Dante +6 Sanguinary Guard, or Captain +6 Sanguinary Guard, that's 7 models. They're carrying a banner that gives them 1 OC. The Battle Shock reduces you to 0 OC, but then the banner adds 1 back. So your Sanguinary Guard plus their character are still 7 OC. So if you do feel like you really need to do a lot of damage with Red Rampage, you can still do that and still be 7 OC rather than 14 OC. I kind of feel like the differentiation there is minor, right? Like, if you're not controlling it with 7 OC, you're probably not controlling it anyway. So, I mean, maybe you would control it with 14 OC and you just take the lance or something. But yeah, it's good that once again we can choose on this stratagem. And I think it's still strong. I think it's still what we need. We already hit like trucks when we charge. This lets us hit like trucks with +1 to wound, right? And then the last 2 stratagems. Aggressive Onslaught. The Blood Angels enact a sweeping advance. This basically gives us advance and charge. This is the first time that we've had this. An interesting thing about this is look when it activates, right? So in your movement phase, after an step is started from your unit has advanced. Until the end of the phase, that unit is eligible to shoot or declare a charge, and instead you can Red Thirst and you can take both. But it's after you've advanced. So your Sanguinary Guard move forward 12, you roll their advance roll, it's a 1. Oh, okay, fine. They maybe just stay in that piece of cover they were in, or they maybe use that 1 to move into a piece of cover, and 1 inch to jump back an inch to go into a piece of cover. You roll a 6, they go right forward, cool, they're advancing and charging. So it's great, you don't have to use it speculatively. So this is a very strong stratagem. We're going to get to more ways on how to use this later in the video. And then Relentless Assault. So from your movement phase, select one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that falls back. So basically your unit falls back, and then you target that unit. It is eligible to shoot or declare a charge, even though it fell back. Or you could Red Rampage again, or you can embrace the Red Thirst. I think I said Red Rampage on the other one. You embrace the Red Thirst, not the Red Rampage, and you do both. And there's some interesting things around here. Most of the time, you're going to want to fall back and charge, right? Like Death Company in combat, they're not that great. Without their charge bonus, you're going to fall back and charge for sure. But there is some interesting plays where, like, sometimes people lock up, like, some Blood Angels players take tanks, dreadnoughts, whatever. There might be a situation there where you're like, yeah, I really actually do want to fall back and shoot. And then sometimes the battle shot might mean nothing as well. So this is powerful as well. We didn't have fallback and shoot in any fashion before. So it's nice that we get that. So Blood Angels execute a tactical withdrawal. It is but a prelude to a renewed assault. So this is brand new. This is also good. I mean, the main difference between these stratagems and Sons of Sanguinius is we lost Fight on Death. But I think Fight First potentially makes up for that. And also, I think Fight on Death was kind of it wasn't a trap, but it was kind of boring in that, like, all you wanted to do all the time with Blood Angels is have 2 CP so you could fight on death. So anytime they charge one of your combat units, you fight on death. You know, you do a lot of damage on death. The additional movement that we've got here, I think, is very cool. I can't remember a time when Blood Angels had advance and charge. This gives us phenomenal threat range. And I've said for many years now that Blood Angels are super scary because of our movement, and this makes our movement one step better than it's ever been before. So overall, stratagems and enhancements, I think we are net probably up a little bit from Sons of Sanguinius. Now, I've got lots more to talk about this video, but if you are getting some value so far, please consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell so you don't miss out on any future Blood Angels Commander YouTube content, because I'm literally here every week. I'm telling you all the lowdowns on all the Blood Angel stuff, and I hope in my videos I can give you some of my knowledge, and also maybe you can learn a thing or two. So please do one of the YouTube algorithm things. I do really appreciate it. Okay, let's talk about some combos that will work really well in this detachment. The first of all is Dante plus 6 Sangre Guard. So we're going to equip all the Sangre Guard with the blades. That is Strength 6, AP 3, 2 damage, 4 attacks per guy. Basically, the blades are going to be better 90% of the time. There's very few situations where the spears are going to do better, and I think because of the AP 3 against all those other targets, you're going to be better just arming the whole unit with the blades. Sangre Guard are finally up to 3 wounds. They are on a 2-up and a 4-up, and basically you're going to get 30 attacks at strength 8, AP 3, 2 damage, hitting on 2+, because you are led by Dante. Dante is going to get 9 attacks at strength 10. They moved his axe up 1 strength. So he is going to get 9 attacks at strength 10, also hitting on 2+. And I've noted that +1 here because if anything makes you -1 to hit, Dante does have a native 2-up. So if you're ever given -1 to hit, then remember Dante's +1 to hit will also negate that. So you actually, from this unit now, you have 24 wounds on a 2-up, 4-up invulnerable save, primarily on 3 wound models. So I think this is a huge improvement from what we had before. I think before, yes, we had 26 wounds, but we didn't have that 4-up invuln, and I think I would have happily given up 2 wounds to get a 4-up invuln across the board. We also have 1 OC per model when battle shocked. We also are -1 to hit and wound in combat. We also have +1 to advance and charge, which lets us sort of double dip. Anytime we want to use that stratagem to advance and charge, we're going to get basically an instant +2, 1 to the advance, 1 to the charge. So that improves their threat range by as much as 8 inches, right? +1 from advance, +1 from charging, D6 advance. So if their previous threat range for Sangre Guard was 24 inches, it is now 32 inches. So it's significant. You know, like before, a 24-inch charge was pretty impossible, if not, you just didn't do it, right? You didn't jump forward 12 and try and make that 12-inch charge. Well, now you jump forward 12, then you move 1 more from your advance and you roll a d6, and then you've got 1 more on the charge and you roll 2d6. So if you wanted to make a 24-inch charge, basically you would need to roll 10 across 3 dice. Now, 10 on 3 dice is reasonably, that's basically bang on average, because the average of a d6 is 3.5, which is 9.5. So basically what you're saying is if you get bang average rolls, 24-inch threat range is now somewhat doable, right? Whereas before it was just like flat no. And even if you go back before, like, you would probably never even do that for like an 18, 19, 20, right? Like, if I said to you, I need to move those Sangre Guard 12 and then make an 8 or 9-inch charge, I probably wouldn't do it. It'd be too risky, right? Whereas now, I guess, 21 inches away doesn't feel that far at all, because now 21 inches minus 14 is saying you would need a 7 across 3 dice. What's that? A 2, and a 3? Well, that seems pretty doable, right? A 2, and a 3, that's like an absolute garbage roll. So, these guys are a lot faster. They're also quite a bit more lethal because of AP3. There's a lot of armies that got a lot of benefit with their version of armor Contempt against Sangre Guard, bringing them from like AP2 down to AP1, and then it kind of neutered them a little bit, especially if you were something like a Rotan Terminator and had a 2-up save and you could ignore 1 AP. Well, 2-up save ignoring 1 AP suddenly is a 4-up for 39 attacks. They're hitting on 2s. There's some lethals. We potentially can give them lance. This unit is a lot deadlier than it was before. I think it is better than it was before, regardless that we have lost some infernal pistols. I think the speed is going to make this scary, and people are going to need to respect the speed. So, I like this combo. Also, it's going to be easier to rapid ingress this combo, I think, because I think 6 guys and Dante is actually going to be less problematic than 10 guys. And again, they're less vulnerable to blast as well. So there's a lot to like with the new Sangre Guard. And I obviously like Dante leading them. They did give him one more strength on his pistol for whatever that's worth as well. So, okay, let's talk about combo 2. And this is Astrath and 10 Death Company. If you do take the 10 Death Company with jump packs now, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get 2 Eviscerators, you can get 3 Power Fists, you're going to get 5 Chain Swords. The weapon skills and profiles of those weapons are here, as well as you're going to get Astrath with his strength 9, 7 attacks, AP 3, 2 damage, dev wounds, and precision on weapon skill 2. I guess when Astrath is joined to them, they're going to get to reroll melee attacks, and they're also going to get some OC, because if there's no chaplain around, they go down to 0 OC. We can reroll our charges, so again, with advance and charge, this becomes pretty scary. And then while Astrath is leading them now, every time they make a charge, until the end of the turn, melee weapons equipped with this have dev wounds. So statistically, I did a quick little bit of maths here. So if you have this 10-man squad and Astrath hit into any enemy, you're going to hit with 7 Eviscerators, right? So that is going to give you 2.3 dev wounds. You're going to hit with 7 Power Fists. That's going to give you 2.3 dev wounds. You're going to hit with 22 Chain Swords. That's going to give you 3.6 dev wounds. And you're going to hit with 6 of his axes for another 2 dev wounds. So basically, these guys average damn near 10 dev wounds every time they charge. They're also going to fight on death on a 4-up. I mean, it's not great, because usually when you pick dead models out of the unit, you're probably going to pick dead ones that have chain swords, so it's not that exciting. But it's not nothing either, right? Like Death Company fighting on death, they'll always do a little bit of damage here or there, especially if you have to lift off those Power Fist guys. Sometimes they can slam a Power Fist into the enemy's face, and they are going to still get rerolls to hit, even if they didn't make the charge, right? So the dev wounds is interesting. 10 dev wounds every time they fight. And I was trying to think back to like the old Death Company where everybody had a Power Fist, and you would basically get, what would it be like? You would get like 40 Power Fists with rerolling all hits and then wounds. So that was very good. It usually ended up with something like 30 wounds maybe. And then they were AP2, so you would average, I guess, like if the enemy had a 4-up invan, you'd probably end up with like 15 saves failed. So you do a total of like 30 damage. Well, these guys do 10 dev wounds straight off the bat. So you get 10 dev wounds straight off the bat, and then you've got 7 Eviscerators, 7 Power Fists, 22 Chain Swords, and 6 axes to roll. So if you just took like half of them, your wound roll would typically be better than half, and you multiplied the damage, you would get 6, 7, 7, and like 11. So 14 plus 20, so you'd get like 31. So these guys would probably, assuming again, like bang on averages, the enemy fails like half the saves. These weapons do like 15 damage anyway, plus the 10 dev wounds. So I think statistically these guys are actually not nearly as bad if they're led by Astrath, that is. So you can't, if they're led by Lamartes, they will be less. Lamartes gives them lethals, which is nice. He gives them -1 to wound, which is also very nice. I haven't actually been running Death Company with a -1. Not -1 to wound. Lamartes gives them -1 damage. So there's definitely still plays there where like Lamartes and the Death Company in a 10 are going to be really good. But if you want like an Alpha Strike Death Company like we have right now, and you're willing to give up a little bit of survivability, then this Death Company with Astrath is going to do very well. It's worth noting that I guess the Death Company can have 2 Infernal Pistols and 2 Plasma Pistols. They obviously can have Advance and Charge now, which gives them that longer potential from the threat. And I think the Dev Wounds makes it pretty scary as well, just because sometimes when you're fighting like big knights or something, the big knights would just play a stratagem. All of a sudden, okay, they can ignore 1 AP, so all your Power Fists, they're saving them on 3-ups or something, and then they just save a boatload of them, and your Death Company are kind of neutered. Same against Votan Land Raiders or Land Fortresses. Sometimes you go into them, Death Company don't really do enough damage. Well, at least now you'd be going 10 Dev Wounds, right? If I put 10 Dev Wounds into a 16 wound tank, I'm feeling pretty good about 7 Eviscerators, 7 Power Fists, 22 Chain Swords, and 6 Axes. Some of these weapons are AP3, some are AP2, but I'm feeling pretty good about being able to do 6 wounds, right? Like, that doesn't feel like doesn't feel like I'm not going to manage to do that. I probably feel just as good about this. So I think this unit, Astrath plus 10 Death Company, depending on how much cheaper Death Company are, because I think they're going to have dropped a little bit in points costs because they aren't expecting them to run with all Infernal Pistols and Power Fists now. So this unit will be based on points, but I think it is honestly a very, very strong combo, and I'm kind of excited to use it. We also know about our new Blood Angels captain, and we've seen the Blood Angels captain, or we've seen a Space Marine captain leading assault intercessors be a staple in Blood Angels lists coming out of an Impulsor. And why is that good? Well, I mean, it's good because the captain has Finest Hour, and once per game he can add 3 to his attacks characteristic. So the Blood Angels captain in particular can take a Mastercrafted Chainsword, which is 7 attacks, so plus 3 would be 10, plus 1 from charging would be 11, so we'd have 11 attacks at strength 6, I believe. But you could still run him with the Power Fist, which would give you 9 attacks at strength 10. Here's the thing, it's all going to depend on if you want to fish for dev wounds. Now, I've been running the captain with 9 attacks with the dev wounds with the Power Fist for a while. If you attach him to assault intercessors, he gets the shock assault rule, so every time a model in this unit, if it's you reroll wounds of 1, and if the enemy's on an objective, you reroll all the wounds. The Rage-Fueled Warrior, though, will give you sustained hits 3 on top of that. So you can have 9 attacks with the Power Fist sustained 3, or you can have 11 attacks with the Chainsword sustained 3. Obviously, 6s will be dev wounds as well. So if you take this against, like, Toughness 5 Terminators, if you have no rerolls and you're using the Chainsword, you'll do 3.2 dev wounds. If you have rerolls of 1, you'll do 5.7. If you have full rerolls of wounds, you'll do 6.5 dev wounds. If you reroll hits and wounds of 1, you'll do 7.7. If you do full reroll hits and full reroll wounds, you'll do 8.5 devs. But this doesn't include fishing. And what fishing means is when you roll your 11 hits, you reroll every dice that isn't a 6. So you reroll all the 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s that are hits, but they're not 6s, because you are fishing for sustained 3. So you roll 2 6s out of 11, but you just pick up all the other, like, there's 8 other hits there, you don't care. You reroll everything. And then the same for the dev wounds, right? So you statistically 8.5 dev wounds without fishing. So with fishing, it could be a little bit higher. You could, this character on his own sum could probably do somewhere between 10 and 12 dev wounds. If you spike a bunch of 6s, it could be ridiculous. You could potentially see 15 to 20 dev wounds. And then typically you've got the Assault Intercessor squad with him as well. And then he does have regular wound rolls as well, right? Like, even if you're re-rolling all that, you are going to get some normal hits. You are going to get some normal wound rolls from them to save. They are only going to be AP 1 from that Mastercrafted Chainsword, but I guess you are fishing hardcore for dev wounds. Now, I'm thinking of adding this captain with the Chainsword into one Impulsor and having a captain with, like, the Power Fist, and what I'm normally using is, like, the Company Heroes into another Impulsor. So both captains can do once per game, crazy dev wounds attacks. They're very killy. The ones with the Company Heroes are a bit more durable, so they can contest middle or something. The Assault Intercessors with the captain and the Chainsword, you are just fishing for dev wounds. They're sacrificial lamb. They're going into something that they're probably not going to kill, but they're going to do 10 plus dev wounds to a big nasty target. They're quite cheap as well, so if you lose them all, it's not the end of the world, and it's probably worth using Oath of Moment on here to fish for the sustained 3. So this is an interesting combo, and in some ways this is the closest you will get to Gabriel Seth right now. So 11 Chainsword with damage 2, sustained 3. So, I mean, if you did roll 11 6s, you would get 33 additional hits on top of your original 11. Yeah, so the potential here is, like, no one's ever going to roll 11 6s, but you could. I've seen games where people roll 5 6s. So if you got 5 6s, and yes, it doesn't happen very often, that's 15 additional attacks straight away, and every single one has a potential of dev wounds, and you're re-rolling all them. It could be disgusting. It will spike sometimes, and when it spikes, your opponent will hate you for the rest of the game, so just be aware of that. Okay, now Combo 4 is where things get really interesting, which is the Speed of the Primarch combined with Savage Echoes. So we can put this on, like, any character. And that will give the unit that they're with Fight First. So we put it on any strong melee character, that squad becomes borderline unchargeable, or it's super tricky for your opponent to deal with. Some of the nastiest combos, I think I've got 4 really nasty combos here. The first one I actually think is going to be super nasty is the Chaplain plus 6 Blade Guard. Now obviously we see the Blade Guard quite often with a Judiciar, but hear me out on the Chaplain idea. Because basically if you get charged, you'll use Savage Echoes, you can take both bonuses. So you can take +1 attack and +1 strength. Because you're led by a Chaplain, once per battle at the start of any phase, you can select one unit as battle shock within 12, and you can remove the battle shock. So if you desperately needed to remove this battle shock, you could. But I think the interesting thing about adding the Chaplain here is he gives you the +1 to wound. So this would give you 30 attacks at strength 6, AP 2 damage from the Blade Guards, and +1 to wound from the Chaplain. You get rerolls to 1s to hit from the Blade Guard veteran buffs, because they've got that Sword of the Empire buff that they can trigger to reroll all misses of 1. So if we take this into a squad of Terminators, so we've got our 6 Blade Guard in the middle, led by the Chaplain, they're charged by a unit of Terminators. Statistically, the Blade Guards alone kill the Terminators fail 9.7 saves, and then from the Chaplain they fail 1.89 saves. So basically, if you were charged by 5 Terminators in a character, you kill all 5 Terminators. You probably actually end up spilling like 2 damage over onto the character as well, but I think the meaningful thing is here, because the Blade Guard reroll their hits, and they go up to 30 attacks when they're charged because of Savage Echoes, and they go up to strength 6, which makes their wound roll against Terminators 3s, and then the Chaplain gives them +1 to wound, so they wound on 2s. That's insane. Like this, the Blade Guard plus the Judiciar previously, if they were charged by a squad of Terminators, kill 3 enemy Terminators. This increases it to 5. Like, you kill the entire squad of Terminators when they charge you. Now, yes, I suppose if your opponent was higher strength, this wouldn't be as effective. Like, I would like to do the maths on this against like Mega Knobs, like strength 6 orcs or something, and I probably will, but I think this is a significant buff just because you get that +1 to wound, and you can pop your strength to 6 if you feel that's needed, right? Like, if you're fighting into something that's like T8, there would be no point of adding the +1 strength, but there might be a point somewhere in this. So I think this is a super interesting combo, and it's not one that we've seen before in other Space Marine factions, so I like it. And then I want to talk to you about a gotcha that you can use with this combo to do quite a significant amount of damage to your enemy. Okay, so let me explain the situation here. On the objective, we have 5 Hellblasters that are standing just in front of the cover. We have a squad of heretics over here that are going to be charging those Hellblasters. So a character +5. Let's say they successfully make their charge. Great job. They have to move into base contact if possible. They end up with something like this. Now, my Sarangari Guard behind are within 6, so they can heroic. Bearing in mind, they're led by a captain. That captain can let us do that heroic for free, because we can reduce the CP cost by 1. And also, because we are using that new enhancement, Speed of the Primarch, once we heroic, we will be able to fight first. So we roll our charge roll. We won't need the hugest charge roll, but let's say we do roll like a 6. So you can see if we measure from the back of the base, flying units move over the top of other units. So I would be pretty confident. These Sangri Guard have been put on base extenders, so we are looking at like 40 mil bases. So from the back of the base, that's way less. The back of the base would let me go all the way over here. The back of the base again would let me go all the way to about here. So you can pretty confidently see the front row of Sangri Guard can easily jump behind here with their heroic intervention. Bear in mind, because they fly, they can move right over models. This back row over here, can they reach? There's definitely one that could reach there. So he'd have to go into base if possible. Now, here would be the interesting thing. Could we put the next guy there? Yes. So he goes into base if possible. Now, this guy can't move into base anymore, so we're actually allowed to put him behind here. We need to check that we're 2 inches here to keep our coherency, so maybe this captain could have come just a tiny bit more, so we've kept the coherency. And then we bring this last guy. Where could he go to be coherent? Probably at the end here. Now, maybe over here we would have had to do something. Remember, he could have got all the way over here, so we might have been able to do something like this. So the coherency was fine at both ends. So coherency is fine after we do a heroic intervention. Now we can pile in. So basically, like this guy, he would have been based already, but this doesn't matter. He can fight through, he can fight. These two guys could use their 3 inches to pile around. Cool. So basically, in this situation where he charged my unit of Hellblasters, my entire squad of Sangre Guard can now fight him first. They did also make a charge move, because they did charge for the heroic intervention, so that gives them +1 attack, +2 strength, so that is 30 strength 8 AP3 hits come from the Sangre Guard, and then a bunch of power fists coming from the captain. I would say in this situation, most of those heretics are not alive. Let's put the Sangre Guard back for a second and pretend that we get charged by a 10-man squad, because I guess a 10-man squad would be lots more bodies, might be harder to do the exact same situation. So I don't really actually have 10 heretic models, but I do have a few more. So we'll put in some Zangors and also proxy in 2 white Sangre priests. So this time it was a 10-man enemy squad that charged like this. In this situation, all 10 of them can fight. Now when we do a heroic intervention with the Sangre Guard, we once again roll a 6, and this time we would make like a pincer maneuver. We wouldn't be able to go round both sides because we aren't going to have the movement. We aren't going to have enough movement even with the fly to jump over, right? But we do have enough movement to go this way. So move models that have to end in base contact first. If we take from the back of this guy's base, I'm pretty confident that he can get here. Then we'll take from the back of this guy's base, so he can go there. So I could have moved those first two, but I think by moving these two, then it means these ones are a little bit more flexible, right? Because there's nowhere for them to go that's going to end in base contact. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to clear. Yeah, he might actually just clear that guy. So he would have to go here. But then at this point, the rest of these guys are kind of free. We just need to put them in coherency. So back of his base to about here. Back of his base to about here. Try and do something smart here. Back of his base to about here. And then this one guy comes over 6 to touch the wall. So now when we do our pile-in, these 3 are already based. So we've got 3 guys fighting. This guy could use his pile-in to go this way, fight through one of these guys. This guy could use his 3-inch pile-in to come around here. This guy could use his 3-inch pile-in to come around here. This guy could actually use his 3-inch pile-in to go there. So even against the 10-man squad, now in this situation, this is the advantage of these bigger Sangre Guard on bigger bases. It's actually a lot easier to do something like this. So 6 Sangre Guard behind a wall. You're charged by 10 heretics. In this case, it's Thousand Suns. We hit them with the 30 strength 9 attacks up front, AP 3. I don't know, we kill like 8 of them or something. You know, we pull something like this, then the captain kills another one. Now he's a tough choice, like, what's he going to do? He's going to either leave some models in combat with the Sangre Guard, or I guess he could pull all of them away. Doesn't really matter now, because the Sangre Guard got their pile in, so we're just going to pile in onto the subjective, and they are OC2 each because of that banner. So suddenly we've just thrown 10 OC onto the subjective. So even if these 3, say these were like Khorne Knights or Khorne Berserkers and a Master of Chaos or some sort of Khorne Lord, I don't remember the character, they do a lot of damage, even if they kill all these Hellblasters. Now, this objective is mostly, certainly mine, because the Sangre Guard have put OC10 onto it. This is very interesting. This is a huge gotcha. Put your unit on the objective, have the Sangre Guard behind, and this is what I'm saying, that threat is there for the entire game. They have to respect that until you use it. And that's going to be a big problem when you're fighting against enemy melee armies. So other units that could be good as well for this would be aggressors plus a biologist apothecary. The aggressors obviously have twin linked and lethals. They could be taken with flamers, which potentially gives you some Overwatch threat as well. Against the exact same squad of Terminators, you would get 24 strength, 8 AP2, 2 damage, twin linked lethals, which would mean that you would kill, or the Terminators would fail 7.8 saves. The Apothecary will do 1 unfailed saves, thus you will kill 4 Terminators statistically with the aggressors and the biologists. Still pretty nice. A jump captain with 6 Sangre Guard will give you 6 models with 5 attacks each. The captain provides that free stratagem usage as well, so if you did have to take the additional attack here from Savage Echoes, then you can do that for free. If you're hitting the Terminators at strength 6, AP2, 2 damage, the same thing happens. You would deal 6.6 unsaved wounds. The captain with a power fist would deal 1.6 unsaved wounds. You add those together again, 4 Terminators die. So if you are being charged by 5 Terminators with a squad of Sanguinary Guard, you are killing 4 of them. You can see how strong that fight first is, and you can also see why I think we don't necessarily need fight on death. Because like I said in my example, they have to respect that until you use it. So if you have a really strong unit that you can hide behind pieces of terrain, like I just showed in the example, they can never shoot them, they can never even get into them. If we're using infiltrators to potentially like screen out in the backfield so they can never deep strike and target those guys, they have to respect that until they trigger it, essentially. So while it only does happen once per game, until it's triggered, it makes it super difficult for your opponent to deal with. Another combo here, actually, that I kind of liked that was someone on Discord mentioned was like, if we had a lieutenant with blade guards, the blade guards would be able to get lethals, and then they'd be able to get fallback and charge. Obviously, you don't want to be stuck in combat for multiple times, and fallback and charge is cool. I mean, that's part of the lieutenant's buff, but we do have a strat for fallback and charge. So I think personally I prefer the chaplain if for some reason that I was stuck in combat. After killing that much stuff, after killing 5 Terminators that charge me, I'm still stuck in combat. Maybe I'd play the 1 CP to fallback and charge. Okay, combo 5 on this detachment is transports plus advance and charge. And I think transports plus advance and charge is something that probably is just worth noting. So placing models with fly into transports gives them a 3-inch disembark before the transport is moved. So in turn 1, if your models are in the transport, they get to move 3 inches to disembark it. So Dante and 6 Sanguinary Guard now fit snugly inside the repulsor due to its increased capacity of 14. 6 Sanguinary Guard plus Dante is 7 models, that is capacity 14. Thus, with below average rolls of 3s, so let's just say like our advanced roll is a 3, our charge rolls are 2 3s, which are below average, because like I said, the average of a d6 is 3.5, and disembarking from that transport, you can do the following. You can disembark 3, you can move 12. You would then advance 1 inch plus 3 because of Dante's plus 1 to advance and charge. You would then charge 6 inches because of the 2 3s and plus 1 to charge, thus totaling 26 inches. So it should be fairly reliable now to target enemies. You know, like in some of these maps, the deployment zones turn 1 are 24 inches apart. So if you park your repulsor on the very front line of your deployment zone, then you already have the opponent, you're already mind gaming the opponent, because they already know that Dante and his squad are pretty reliable up to 26 inches now. You could push that a little bit higher. Their maximum now is actually 35 inches. So yeah, if you think before 24 inches was a complete Hail Mary, like you never went for a 24-inch charge or a move 12-inch charge, then this is a big change, and it opens up some interesting alpha strike potential. In that, like, if the opponent puts a real nasty unit you just don't want to deal with right on their front line in the early deployment, they'd put that first. Sure, my repulsor goes straight forward, I go first. I can just YOLO Dante and his Sanguinary Guard right into that from turn 1. If you don't want to do the turn 1 charge, or you're not confident about simply driving, or you're not confident, and sometimes it's probably not best to do the turn 1 charge. You can use the turn 1 charge as a bit of a mind game, but here's the interesting thing. If you just, in turn 1, all you do is move your impulsor forward 10 inches. You can potentially even advance it. Keep it in cover, keep it obscured, but you get it forward somewhere between 10 and 12 inches. Now, this gives you turn 2 threat probably onto every objective on the board, right? Because by the time you come out and you make your advance and make your charge, you could go anywhere you want. It's actually quite tough to kill a toughness 12, 16 wound vehicle, and yeah, I think I just move it behind cover. The repulsor doesn't have that many guns. It's got like a las cannon and like a 2-shot las talon, which is basically a strength 10 las cannon. But like, you're not going to lose sleep if you don't get to shoot it for a turn. What it does do is provide an insane platform for threat in turn 2. And if you had that other squad of Astroth plus the 10 Death Company in reserve, basically like your turn 2 threat is just going to be potentially insane. Now, I'm sure there's some more combos for this lag detachment, and we're going to call it lag on the channel, Liberator Assault Group. That way when I lose, I can just say, I will blame it on the lag. So please do leave your favorite combos and comments in this video, and in the coming weeks I'll be making videos comparing all manner of units and army lists to help field and find the most deadly Blood Angels list possible, because that's what we're going to try and get into. And I think the lag detachment is the strongest detachment in the new Codex, so I think I'm going to start there. I'll probably try and win another GT using the lag detachment, and then maybe I'll start experimenting with the other 2 detachments. I am going to make overview videos on the other 2 detachments similar to this one in the coming weeks as well. So let's talk about some notable units in this detachment, though, because there is a lot of them and they are different, and there's some that maybe people have forgotten about, and I certainly had forgotten about. And number 1 is going to be Outriders. So Outriders get a guaranteed 6-inch advance move. So that combos pretty nicely with advance and charge. So Outriders are good for performing actions. They're also good at bullying chaff units. You know, 15 strength, 6 chainswords isn't the worst thing in the world, but the fact that they can advance and charge now with that 18-inch move, or 18-inch move plus 12-inch plus 6 auto advance, is pretty nice. I think Terminators, if they are given the speed of the Primarch enhancement, could be very aggressive with rapid ingress, because no one's going to want to charge Terminators if they're fighting first. They get a lot of power fists and Blood Angels, so normally when you're doing rapid ingress you want to put units like 12 inches away so the enemy can't make a long bomb charge on them. If you have speed of the Primarch, you're not caring. If the enemy charges you, cool, I'll fight you and I'll kill a bunch of your models. So you could be much more aggressive with Terminators using rapid ingress. You could place them precisely 9 inches away. That means if you're almost like daring your enemy, like charge my Terminators, or my Terminators are going to move 5 inches forward, probably shoot you, and then charge you. Centurions, right? Speed was the biggest problem for Assault Centurions. They are our only unit that's flat 3 damage, because Thunderhammers don't do the 3 damage anymore, bar Dreadnoughts. They get sustained 2Vs, monsters, and vehicles, and they were brutally good in Gladius Task Force because they advance and charge in Gladius Task Force. So you could put them inside something like a repulsor, and you could disembark 3, you could move their 5 inches, and then you could advance and charge. And in Gladius Task Force, they had less strength and less attacks. So here they go up to 4 attacks per model. They, like the sustain 2 basically means for every 1 miss that you roll, or you usually roll a 6, which brings it back in. So if they get 12 attacks, which they do, you're likely to end up with 12 hits, because you roll 2 1s and 2 2s. So that's 4 misses, but you also roll 2 6s, which are sustained 2. So 12 attacks becomes 12 hits. So 12 hits, they will be strength 12, twin linked, and damage 3. They always do damage to monsters and vehicles. They always do good damage. They're very good at killing demons. I used to kill like greater demons with like 3 Centurions in Gladius Task Force all the time. If you use Oath of Moment, it's very, very good with 6s being sustained too, you know? So, you know, like I feel like they're a unit that was popular for Blood Angels right at the start of the edition. It kind of fell away as Gladius Task Force fell away, but I could totally see them back. Their main problem is they're slow as crap, but advance and charge changes a lot, right? Because when a Centurion only moves 5, but then you roll that 6 on the advance and suddenly they move 11, then that starts getting pretty interesting. And remember, our stratagem says we do not need to choose a unit for advance and charge until we've rolled that advance roll. So you roll that advance roll, oh, it's a 6. Oh, my Centurion is moving 11 inches. Oh, maybe they'd like to advance and charge this turn. Pretty good. Vindicator tanks are also a great tank. T11, 2-up save. They average over 6 strength 14 AP3 shots per turn. It's brilliant at taking out monsters, vehicles, tanks. It's even good at killing stuff like Terminators or something, just because strength 14 usually means wounding on 2s. The problem with Vindicator tanks is you could never advance and shoot anymore, or you could never fall back and shoot anymore. Well, we've got 2 stratagems, both of which are advance and shoot or fall back and shoot. Yeah, the main reason you probably use them in Blood Angels is advance and charge or fall back and charge, but they do also say you can shoot if you want to. So if Vindicator tanks were rubbish because we could never advance and shoot or fall back and shoot anymore, well, we get 2 stratagems that potentially fix that. So Vindicator tanks could see a tiny little bit of a resurgence in the Sons of Sanguinius detachment. Maybe, and I mean, there is value in strength 14 EP3 shots, right? And when you spike on the number of hits on those Vindicators, they're brutal. They're very good. I also think repulsors at the new lower cost are going to be pretty good as like a springboard for jump pack units. And you can also set up some good gotcha plays based on that by putting units just outside the repulsor on the objective. The enemy charges them, they jump back inside the repulsor. There's a nice gotcha there that comes up now and again. So overall, I think the repulsors at 180 points. I thought they were competitive before. I think they were 195 or even 190. I ran them before. I thought they were okay. I think in this detachment they may be even better, because like if we talk about like Dante and his 6 Angry Guard being inside that repulsor turn 1, if I move my repulsor forward turn 2 with the plan to jump them out of it, I'm probably just going to move another jump unit into the repulsor right behind them. And then my plan for like turn 3 then will be to disembark and jump that jump unit with the insane speed that it gets. And I'll use that multiple times. And so, at some point, the impulsor will go sit on an objective, or it'll go shoot some stuff. And when it's sitting on an objective, it's OC5 with T12 and 16 wounds. So yeah, it's not as strong as a Land Raider, but it's 100 points cheaper. So it's fine. I also think impulsors, they're already pretty popular for Blood Angels. I think they're going to be very popular now. Because they got buffed to take 7, they can fit Blade Guard. I do think that Blood Angels players will probably still focus on Captain and Assault Intercessors or Captain and Company Heroes, but if you are doing that, then there's 1 extra seat inside that Impulsor, and that could be for Mephiston. A lot of people seem excited about Mephiston. I'm a little bit worried that he still has a D3 damage weapon. I think if his sword was flat 2 damage, I think he would be a very good pick. Because his sword is D3, I'm still... I feel like he's not reliable enough as a damage dealer to pick over the captain. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do something with him, again, he moves 7, so coming out of Pulsar, Disembark 3, move 7. He gets advance and charge by default, so he's flying out of that Impulsor as well. Could be an interesting option. And then I think Ball Predator's actually got a bit of a buff. Every weapon in the Ball Predator now, except like the Hunter Killer and the Stormbolter, is Assault. So if you're running double Heavy Flamer and the Flamestorm Cannon, all your weapons are Assault by default. You reroll your advances in the Ball Predator, so it's fast moving. It's got better, I guess. You can flame anything you want. So it's had a nice little buff. So these are all units that I could see getting some play. I'm not saying throw all these in the same list, but I think all of these have play now, and maybe a bunch of them had no play before, or had less play. So that is the end of a Liberator Assault Group overview. I know this was a hell long video. I didn't intend for it to be this long, but I guess there was a lot to talk about. My name is John. This is the Blood Angels Commander channel. If you haven't done any of these algorithm-y type things, I would love it if you consider doing that. I'm here to try and help everybody be better at Blood Angels player. Everybody be a Blood Angels player. God, I've done so many takes of this video now. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I will be live sometime next week with more Blood Angels content. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks ever so much for supporting the channel. I'll look forward to you all getting your new Flavor of the Month Blood Angels box next week. Fear of missing out, but I've honestly been filming this video for so long. It's past 11 o'clock at night. My brain is finally... my brain's finally done. So, enjoy the video. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.